August 23, 1942. Near the Kalash on the Don, Soviet Union. The heat of the Russian summer is a physical weight, thick with the smell of parched grass and diesel exhaust. Inside the cramped, sweltering hull of a Soviet T-34, Sergeant Alexei Volkov wipes a mixture of grit and sweat from his brow. His eyes are glued to the periscope, scanning the shimmering horizon of the endless steppe. Suddenly, the world changes. A boxy, gray silhouette crests a distant ridge, nearly 2 kilometers away. It is massive, an angular titan of steel that looks more like a mobile fortress than a tank. Volkov's loader freezes, a 76mm shell halfway to the breech. They have heard rumors of a new monster, but seeing it is different. Through the optics, the sergeant watches as a long, lethal snout, the 88mm KWK-36, swivels with agonizing precision. A flash, a thunderous crack that seems to split the sky. Before Volkov can even shout an order, the T-34 to his left, commanded by his best friend, erupts in a violent geyser of orange flame and jagged metal. There was no chance to maneuver, no chance to return fire. The Tiger I had reached out from a distance they thought was safe and snuffed out a crew of 5 in a heartbeat. This was the debut of the Panzerkampfwagen 6 Tiger. For the first time, the Allied quantity had met a German quality so terrifying it would create a psychological condition known as Tigerphobia. From the deserts of Tunisia to the muddy fields of the East, the mere report of a tiger in the area was enough to grind entire Allied advances to a halt. But beneath the 100mm of frontal steel and the terrifying ping of the 88mm cannon, a different kind of war was being fought, one of logistics, metallurgy, and the hubris of over-engineering. July 7, 1943. The northern salient, Kursk. The air is a cacophony of screeching metal and the rhythmic thump-thump of artillery. Lieutenant Hans Schmidt, a commander in the 503rd Heavy Panzer Battalion, stands in the cupola of his Tiger 131. He feels invincible. His armor has already shrugged off a dozen hits from Soviet anti-tank guns that would have shredded a Panzer IV. Target, T-34, 1 o'clock. Schmidt yells over the intercom. The Tiger's turret slews slowly, driven by a complex hydraulic system that requires the engine to be running at high RPMs just to move quickly. The gunner, using the world-class Zeiss TZF-9B optics, settles the crosshairs. The 88 speaks, and another Soviet tank is added to the battalion's tally. However, the triumph is short-lived. As Schmidt orders his driver to pivot, there is a sickening, metallic grind. The tank jerks and stops. "Transmission's gone, Lieutenant." The driver groans, his voice cracking with exhaustion. This was the Tiger's hidden enemy. To achieve such massive protection and firepower, German engineers had pushed the 54-ton machine to its absolute limit. The Maybach HL-230 engine was a masterpiece of German engineering, but it was being asked to move a mountain. Schmidt looks down at his tracks. The Schachtelaufwerk, the complex system of overlapping and interleaved road wheels, was designed to provide a smooth ride and distribute the Tiger's immense weight. But now, in the heat of battle, a single broken inner wheel means hours of backbreaking labor. To reach that one failed component, the crew will have to remove 3 or 4 outer wheels first. As the Soviet infantry begins to swarm the ridge, Schmidt realizes the grim reality. His invincible fortress is now nothing more than a very expensive, very stationary pillbox. August 12, 1944. Near Ogildov, Poland. The morning mist clings to the Vistula River like a wet shroud. inside the turret of a brand new Tiger II, or Königstiger. Unteroffizier Karl Müller feels the raw power of 68 tons of German steel vibrating beneath his boots. This isn't just a tank. It's a statement. With its sloped armor, a lesson learned painfully from the Soviet T-34, and the long-barreled 88mm KWK 43L/71, it is the apex predator of the European theater. Forward, slowly, Müller commands. The massive Maybach engine roars, but the movement is sluggish. The Tiger II is a giant gasping for air. As they crawl toward the village, the ground beneath them, soft from recent rains, begins to give way. The tracks, despite being the widest ever fitted to a production tank, sink deep into the Polish mud. Suddenly, a series of muffled explosions rock the front of the column. It isn't an ambush. It's the sound of final drives shattering under the strain of trying to turn the massive hull in the mire. Müller watches in frustration as two of his platoon's tanks grind to a halt, their internal gears reduced to metal confetti. At this stage of the war, the King was a victim of its own ambition. The 150 millimeters of sloped frontal armor made it impenetrable from the front. No Allied gun could reliably best it in a head-on duel. But that protection came at a cost that the crumbling Third Reich could no longer pay. The engine and transmission, originally designed for the lighter Tiger I, were being pushed far beyond their mechanical breaking points. Fuel status? Müller asks. 20%, sir. The driver responds. Plus, we haven't even reached the objective. The Tiger II was a fuel-drinking monster, devouring 500 liters of precious synthetic gasoline for every 100 kilometers of road. In a Germany where fuel depots were being bombed daily and supply lines were collapsing, the King Tiger was often a king without a kingdom, doomed to be abandoned by its crew before it ever fired a shot in anger. January 14th, 1945. The Ardennes forest, Belgium. The silence of the snowy woods is shattered by the rhythmic clatter of metal. Major Robert Thompson of the U.S. 3rd Armored Division stands in the hatch of his M4 Sherman. He knows the stories. He's seen the charred husks of Easy-8s that tried to go toe-to-toe with the Tiger. But as he looks at his map, he sees something the German commanders refuse to acknowledge. The math of total war. Comms, tell the boys to keep moving. Thompson orders, if we see a big cat, don't stop. Bypass and let the Jabos handle it. For every Tiger I that rolled off the assembly line in Kassel, the United States was churning out nearly 40 Shermans. For every Tiger II, the Soviet Union unleashed over 150 T-34s. And the German philosophy of quality over quantity was being drowned in a literal sea of Allied iron. Maintenance had become a nightmare of bespoke proportions. While a Sherman's part could be swapped out in a muddy field with standard tools, the Tiger required specialized cranes and highly trained mechanics. In the chaos of the retreat toward the Rhine, these mechanics were often dead or captured. Thompson's column passes a Tiger II abandoned on the side of a narrow mountain road. It isn't burnt out. There are no shell holes in its 150-millimeter plate. Instead, the crew had simply popped the hatches and dropped a grenade into the breach because they had run out of petrol, and a 2-cent seal in the cooling system had perished. The German armored monster hadn't been slain by a better tank. It had been choked to death by its own complexity and the sheer industrial weight of a world that had outproduced it.